ASMR listeners, greetings. I'm ASMR Mace Caesar, some people call me. Today I wanted to explore something a bit more podcasty. And I say that with sort of an accidental wince. I love podcasts, and I think probably a lot of you guys do too. So I think it behooves us to try and explore that realm as well. Not rushed speaking, it still can be relaxing. You can do tasks during. So I have a few things I want to cover. The first of which is this whole pandemic has forced my hand, forced my lifestyle to change. And it's given me a little more limited options. And I find looking back in my life, it's been I'm so energetic, it's been like hectic and hyper and sort of chaotic. And I think when you get older and you look back in your youth, that's normal to think of your past. But this limited options available to me has sort of forced my lifestyle into a more focused style. And being as though I consider myself, I think I'm fairly resourceful and creative. I can do a lot with a little. And so this is good. I've always been fairly good with computers, and I can make do in this new time for sure. So ultimately, consistently making videos, focusing more on that for my life, has been, in a way, very joyous. And I consider it now part of my sort of meditation and thought process and just how I communicate with the world as well as myself. I find that a great thing. So, as you may have noticed from one of my more recent videos, I gotten a computer upgrade, and that means quieter computer. A couple people, in the ASMR community, the comment section, the viewers are so reluctant, which is kind of a cool thing, to be negative in any way in the comments, because they're just so, I think, grateful for the time invested on the part of the ASMR artists to make this content for you, which it's earned. I mean, it does take a lot of effort and a certain headspace time that they don't always criticize the videos. They rarely criticize the videos. And sometimes that brings up interesting things, critical notes. So someone mentioned, a couple people have mentioned that, and I agree, that the background noise was a bit much. Whereas I've been used to certain fans in my rooms, and they become soothing. A lot of people are not soothed by that, and too much extraneous noise, of course, especially for ASMR artists and ASMR content, is a big point to pay attention to. So it's so nice to have this better space. I now wait also for sound purposes. This is not an ideal recording studio whatsoever, but I have to wait until the house is quiet and everything. There are limited people here. So I look forward to those times as well. I've noticed that when it rains, it's a beautiful sort of masking situation for fans that I still have to have going during recording. I do minimize the sound as much as possible. I have this shield here around the microphone. I have a pop filter. I check the levels beforehand. I've been doing more work recently as well to learn more about microphones and recording and how to speak in them, what you could, which I was doing pretty well already, yay, and what sort of microphones and equipment that you might want were it time to upgrade. And I'm feeling that that time is coming, but I'm really also trying to practice with the equipment that I have. So you don't need expensive equipment to do this. That's one of the most beautiful things about it. Making content is easy. You just, for the most part, have to have the headspace. You have to put yourself in proper pacing and mindset and consideration to speak in such a way that is conducive to relaxation. And I find I can do this easier than some, so I want to use that strength and share it with you. Now I'm excited when it rains. It's time to record, it's time to share. So that's great. Looking at my notes here. My big topic and that's just a sort of intro of thank you. And for myself, the choices I've made in this focused lifestyle, and also to you for watching these videos, of course, because without you, I wouldn't have any sort of feedback, and I wouldn't have any nice things to look forward to in my life. That's a huge joke. I have lots of other nice things, but this is one of the many nice things I like to enjoy, sharing with you and hearing feedback. I want to talk about, now that the intro is done, the source of ASMR. I think about this all the time, very often, at least once a day. The source of ASMR, what I mean by that is, how does it work? Why does it work in some people, and why do some people seem to have sort of a more natural talent for it? And looking at some other people who have this talent, I would say that it could be a few things. And I don't think there's a proven recipe. I think there's a lot of possibilities that are out there to lend a hand to making a person sensitive to ASMR. And I think you have to be that before anything. Like, you have to be a lover of ASMR before you become a decent content creator. And I hope I'm being that for you. I'm trying to use what I have to the best of our ability. So, let's see. There's so many things in my head here. I want to start with, I have a note here that says HSP, hypersensitive people. I don't know how much of this is sort of a real thing. I think it might be just sort of a psychological term. I haven't researched this, but I've heard this term, and I want to use it as a jumping off point to talk about people that are sensitive to the point of being able to perhaps get these tingles, have this receiving of sound, and make use of it, and sight and movement and everything. There's so many different triggers, right? Ultimately, and this fits very much in line with what I learned early in college from a meditation and yoga instructor. He was both for me. A very special person at the time who I miss. He said happiness is a perspective. You can be happy. I'm not arguing that this is a good thing, but you can be happy in any situation. You just have to have a perspective that gives you happiness, that joy. Not good things could be happening and still you could be happy. That sounds more like sort of a psychotic take on it, but it's an extreme example of that. And that comes to my point, which is ultimately ASMR is a choice on your part. And ASMR artists try their best, content creators try their best to give you triggers that work, but based on your past experience and your perspective now, watching this, whenever you're watching it or rewatching it, you can choose to be in a meditative state enough to receive those tingles. And if you've meditated in a relaxing way, you might have noticed you getting ASMR from sometimes no sound at all. I have certainly felt that before ASMR ever became a thing. I do find myself, at least, I can sort of just focus, or in a way sort of defocus from certain things in, say, for me, a large amount of white noise room, like a restaurant, maybe not full of people, but with a few people in there, and it seems to blend together all the speech, and I just sort of let that happen and think about a good feeling, nothing in particular, just sort of kind of wanting a good feeling and letting those sounds happen, and just gazing off into the distance or closing my eyes. Either way, I can get these tingles just in that situation. And there's no one next to me trying to set off that feeling, but it's working still. So ultimately, it's a choice on your part. And this is not to say that if you aren't feeling these things from certain content, that it's your fault. It's just how it is. Ultimately, it's your choice. Once again, I like bringing up hypnosis a lot. Hypnosis is a choice. You can be in a state of mind that puts you in that place, and being a bit too defensive in certain ways can make it so that you either can't be hypnotized or you are taken out of it quickly. And once again, ultimately, hypnosis is a choice on when you exit it. If you're uncomfortable at any point during hypnosis, you come out of it. And I think it's meditation and hypnosis is so in line with ASMR. It's silly. They're the same thing. Let's come now to a great personality that we all know and enjoy, Bob Ross. And I want to bring up Bob Ross not because he's sort of the unofficial father of ASMR, but because of his past sort of made him into the person he became. If you looked into Bob Ross's history at all, you would learn that he had a military background where his job, whatever it was, I get the feeling it was sort of a drill instructor type situation. He said multiple times his job was yelling at people, and he didn't like doing that after a while. So when he retired, or whatever happened there, he chose to never shout again. This is a choice on his part. I've heard this quote multiple times. He has a quality to his voice that I think came out of that sort of antonym to relaxation. his job was to excite and sort of annoy people as a, say, drill instructor, whatever it was, and call them to action, make them do certain things, probably. And so much of that in your life, eventually you want to balance it out. So as we grow older, we look back and think about all the things we've done, the experiences we've had, and we want to balance it out. If there's too much of any one quality, especially something we don't like, we usually try and balance it out. And I think that was a huge conscious effort on the part of Bob Ross to now speak soothingly to people in certain situations. And ultimately he said he never wanted to shout again. I believe he might have done that. He might have succeeded. Probably not, but mostly, which is huge. It's huge. So that brings us to another sort of theory, the need to calm down yourself or another person is what makes like a hypersensitive person, if that's what it is, what makes a person be receptive to ASMR. To choose to have a perspective of calm in certain situations. Is it the opposite in their past? Is it, say, a turbulent childhood? I would categorize my childhood as turbulent. I had a lot of very not quiet moments in my childhood, and there were a lot of vocal battles that I chose to fight. And I was a teenager. I had plenty of energy to do so, and I exercised my voice in such a way to be very aggressive. After all that, I think maybe it could help in two ways. One, it can damage your vocal cords a little bit in a way. A lot like some people like the sound of a person who has damaged their lungs a lot through substances. I think my take on that is that we can sort of sense, we can hear the damage, the sort of stuff that a person has gone through in a way, that they've been through hard times, and that we want, through hearing that quality in their voice, through even seeing that quality in the way they walk, they act, otherwise, that we want to, if we like them, want to sympathize with them and empathize. And also, I think I made 2 points there. So one, you get a certain quality of voice from having things damaged, which I think I did. And two, other people are receptive to that, not just the way it sounds, but sort of a subconscious way of thinking about what that person has been through. And in a way, you want to help calm them, or perhaps be calmed by them. There is a source of wanting calm from a past that wasn't. I think that's a good way of putting it. A need to calm. I would calm my sibling after certain turbulent times in our childhood. I got good at it because I wanted to soothe after turbulent moments. So as I guess I was having practice in both ways. I was sort of damaging my voice, damaging my body a little bit by exerting it in such an aggressive way, and also I had practice in calming calming down not only myself, but another person, which ultimately can help calm you down much more than doing it yourself. Now I want to talk about, and by the way, I want to open that up as a discussion because I find this extremely interesting. Please comment down below what you think, or what, do you think I'm right in any way? That damaging a voice can bring about these properties, that having a turbulent past may bring a calm future. What do you think? Whether you think I'm right or wrong, that's fine, but also I'm more interested in what you think it might be. If you have any theories, I'm interested, because I think, especially if you've had this thought many, many times in the past, kind of increases the chances that you're right, because we see certain patterns in life. And although we don't have any proof, I think that at some point you just kind of know. And I don't think it's possible to nail down the source and, try and make a perfect ASMR being from their childhood through this. That's ridiculous. But we can muse and we can talk, and I think it's a relaxing subject in a way. It might also help us further our ASMR community to make better content. It could help us, say, come up with certain plots. I don't do plots very well, let's be honest. I just sort of either yammer or I do strange sounds and hypnotic things, and that's fine with me. I'm going to leave it up to the other ASMR artists to go with plot-driven videos. I think they do a fantastic job, and I'll stick to what I think I'm good at. So now I want to talk about my experience with ASMR. Before I even knew what it was, before we had a name, which I'm going to be a little humorous here now for a moment and say that I wish we had a better name for it. ASMR is so long. It's a recognized term. Now, a lot of people know what you're talking about when you say it, but certainly when people haven't heard of it before, or haven't heard of it enough to remember even that they have heard it, it's kind of a confusing term, ASMR. I feel like a lot of people want to turn their brain off when they hear that term. That it sounds boring, maybe a bit too complicated. 4 letters? Do I have to know what these 4 letters mean? And then when you tell them what the 4 letters mean, that doesn't help either. I oftentimes use the word tingles instead, and just, gesture to the back of your neck, the point at which most of us originate that feeling. Where it is. Can someone think of a better name? My history with ASMR, not knowing that it was such a thing, was rooted in a love of male voices. My father's voice, he loved his voice. He probably wouldn't admit it, depending on his mood, but he loved his voice. He had a very powerful, commanding voice. And, aside our shouting matches when I was young, because that's sort of the thing you go through, let's be honest. 2 males in the same house, son, father, yeah. It's going to be some turbulence. But he had a rich voice. It was very calming. At some points, he would calm himself, and I think he didn't use it to maybe its fullest ability, and I think that's what I want to do, because I think that. So that's the root of it, I think, absolutely, is my father's voice. And I think probably a lot of you have the same story. If you're more, I imagine there's a lot of people that like both evenly. I definitely sway towards male voices. Of course, I like my own voice. But voices that are soothing yet like a little commanding yet nice, like have that edge of power, but ultimately use it to soothe. I like that juxtaposition a lot. So where else did I enjoy male voices? Well, I'll tell you. It was mostly from, and I definitely got ASMR from women as well. I think I just got it easier and quicker and maybe stronger from male voices. They were usually doctors, dentists, any sort of like administrative personnel, preferably for me, male. I had like counselors. They were oftentimes female. I do have a counseling past, being counseled at least, and they gave me that feeling, that personal attention, that soothing edge that put me in that zone as well. Absolutely. I think it took a bit longer, but those male doctors, because I always just happened to have male doctors and dentists, and I guess that's sort of a demographic, but that's what I had. Other children would not enjoy going to doctors and dentists and such. I loved it. I could not wait for the next appointment. And this includes, I got, even though I don't have perfect teeth now, let's not talk about that, but I did have braces. And they were painful. It's painful when the teeth are moving. It's painful when they give you a new size and tighten them, all that stuff. Even with that, I would love going to the dentist, hearing him communicate with his team, tell me things, ask me things, because their job is to do it in a conducive manner. They want to be a little soothing to you. They don't want to agitate you. They want you to be happy and comfortable. And that personal attention was fantastic. Oh man, I always got the best. Like one of my favorite memories, just two simple memories from doctors, were when they check your pulse with the stethoscope, of course. There's a little bit of touching involved in that, which is always nice. I like hearing Joe Rogan talk about that. Every now and then he'll admit that he's like, I know it sounds weird, but I like jiu-jitsu also because you're contacting another person in close contact, like when they're holding him and grappling, or vice versa. That skin-to-skin contact is soothing, he says. He thinks it's very healthy, and I think so too. even if there's a glove there, it's just knowing that person, you're in a safe enough situation to where that could happen even briefly, is a soothing thing. Let's see. And the other one was the doctors taking my, I think it's blood pressure, when they put the wrap around your arm. Man, I love that, especially when they pump it up. And then there's this moment of absolute silence when you're waiting after it's pumped up all the way. And they're just staring at it. And they have to concentrate a little bit. And they're counting to themselves. And sometimes it takes a while. There's just a moment of bliss for me. And then they say, okay, well, and they rip it off, and oh man, that moment, I like to replay it in my head, and that it plays out to much longer than it was. Sometimes they do both arms. It's awesome. So that's where I found out that I could have and did have such a feeling, was from doctors, mostly doctors and dentists and counselors for sure. I could not wait to be able to have that ability myself. When I was a young boy, knowing that your voice could change was a huge revelation to me. I didn't know what it would be like, but of course I had friends that had gone through the change, their voice change, and they seemed like different people. They were so much more confident. They were received so much better by females and males alike. Oh, it was excellent. And as it happened, comically so, I was the last of my friends. Does this mean I have no testosterone? I don't think so. I can get riled really easily if I need, right? But I was the last of my friends to have my voice change. I was waiting so much. I wanted it so bad that it made it even funnier that I was the last one to have it. But of course, it was worth it. I think I like to talk to guys about this, but it's a very odd conversation. I like to talk about weird stuff, right? So I have to have a rare sort of friend to be able to talk about this. Like, hey man, do you remember when your voice changed? How that felt compared to your voice before? How people treated you? How you felt about how it sounded to yourself and everything. Just the fact that you kind of, I imagine, I sure did, liked talking more because you had that sort of power with you everywhere. It was wonderful. And I never, it's untrue. I was about to say, I never wanted to exert my power over others. Of course you do. You have to test it out. Of course you do. You want to play with that tool once you get it. You want to see what it sounds like at any volume, at any sort of soothing or aggression. It's such a wild experience. And it's kind of a treat being male, going through that time. There's plenty of other things that you have to deal with around the pubic era, the puberty, that it's nice to have that one thing where you're like, okay, I'm proud of this. I sound different and definitely better, more adult, and powerful, ultimately. Oh man, if I could write the perfect bit about wanting to have that voice change and not having it come, having it be the last of your friends to change, I would do it in a heartbeat. I think it's so funny in my mind, but I don't have the talent to write such a thing. I would love to go up on stage and do that. I've always wanted to be a stand-up comedian. That'd be wonderful. I love talking. Why not? Why not? It would be fantastic. And I love making people laugh. I call it breaking a person when you take them out of what they were planning to do, their normal rigmarole in a situation, and that you make them laugh and they drop their guard, and it's just such a release for them and for me, watching and knowing that I helped do that. It's excellent. In a lot of ways, it's like ASMR to me. I want to help people in that way, laughing and tingling. Now, if you could do both at the same time, and I know there are channels that do this, but I think I just haven't been able to surmise the right way to do it. A quick shout out, because it's the number one as far as I know, Ephemeral Rift. He's always making fun of stuff, and he has such a dry take. It's great. You'll be tingling really hard watching his videos, and then he does something and you just have to laugh for a moment. And then for me, I'm thinking about the joke, because I have such a respect for comedy that it takes a little bit to get back in that tingling section, but you can do it. So, can you do both at the same time? Maybe not, but you can. They can harmonize, and I think they have a lovely relationship. So, I just want to say thank you again for everyone watching and for being entertained by my yammering, hopefully, goodness. Okay? I have found this practice of sharing and content creation to be part of my constitution. I consider it a constitutional. I found as I've been making more videos that I feel the need to meditate less. So there is absolutely an overlap there. And now I want to meditate, because I kind of miss it anyway, right? Oh man, the grass is always greener. But both are fantastic, and there's such an overlap that I implore you to try it, or at least think and talk about it. Let's talk about it. And let's talk about how ASMR came about. That's what I'm most fascinated with, and I have been for a long time. What sort of people, what sort of past in people's lives lend them to doing this? Do you think it's hypersensitive people? What's your experience on male voices? The voice change, maybe your own. Maybe you can open up about your funny moments about that, because there's a desperation to it that is very comical. You want that voice change so bad. It's great. Yeah, let's talk. Thanks, everyone.